joining us throughout the time, or dialing in to see the recording later. So as I said before, you'll be muted as you come in, and I'll be on the video and I'll be showing you the PowerPoint, and then you'll be able to go and put questions in the chat, and Catherine will be monitoring the chat so that she can let me know if there are any questions. I think at the end, if you have time and you want to stay for a couple extra minutes after the bulk of the presentation, we'll have a chance, like everybody can turn their video on and see one another and introduce themselves. And that would be a really nice way to reconnect with those that you've already met, and also to just see other people that are working in the same ministry in their own parishes. So we are recording, and I think that we'll just move on to some of the other things. I did prepare a handout, which Catherine will put the link for the handout in the chat window. This is a handout that is just, I thought it would be a nice little helpful piece to take notes. So it has just some questions and things that you can fill in as you're going, so that helps you to stay engaged during the presentation. Mm-hmm. And then there's also going to be a packet, and Catherine's going to put that one also in the chat window, so you should be able to download those. Catherine, are we good? Can you get those in there? Okay, she's on her way doing it. And I don't have the PowerPoint available for downloading during the webinar, but that may be something afterwards, because we're going to have it live during the webinar, so you can view it while we're going through it. And then afterwards, if somebody needs that, we can do that afterwards. So thanks for that question. Okay, so while Catherine's getting that up, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So that was our introduction. So today we're going to be going over the welcome packet with samples, and we're going to talk about greeter training and also follow up with our guests. And some of the information that we do today may be very basic. This is, these are the basics of greeting. You need to have somebody at the door to greet your guests on Sundays, and what kinds of things are you going to run into as far as questions that people have, and how do you follow up with them? So for some of you, you may say, oh, we're already doing that. But hopefully that there will be ideas and things that you'll see during this webinar that will help you take it to the next step. Or sometimes we're doing something and it's going really well for a while, but it does need a tune-up. And so I thought it would be really great to start off 2017 with this topic. And wherever we are at in greeting, like, there's always things that we can do to improve. And this is also, since it's our first webinar, maybe you're going to bring things to the discussion or to the chat, or with your questions that will help us spark a second webinar that will be a follow-up on maybe one specific topic within the whole conversation about welcome ministry. So hopefully you'll find something helpful and something that can take your greeting ministry to the next level. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the welcome packet. So at our Missions and Evangelism Conference in Portland in October, Father Barnabas Powell came, and his presentation was called Utilizing Media to Make Disciples and Invite Guests. And I just wanted to introduce you to him through the PowerPoint. He's the parish priest at Saints Raphael, Nicholas, and Irene Greek Orthodox Church in Cumming, Georgia. He's also the host of the Faith Encouraged podcast on Ancient Faith Radio, and the author of the Journey to Fullness program, which is a video and catechetical program that can be purchased through his website. And he just released a book as well that I believe is also called Faith Encouraged. So Father Barnabas is just a wonderful resource. He's very energetic and hardworking, and he has such a passion for welcoming visitors and finding ways to connect. So some of the things that we're talking about in here are inspired by his presentation. Let's see. All right, so we're having a little bit of a technical problem. Let me help out here with getting the link. Give me just a second. Okay, I'm going to be giving you the link to the handout. So just bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so here's the link. This is the one that just came in your chat window, is the link to the note-taking handout, which you may be able to pull up right now and use, or you may print it and use it later to kind of refresh your memory about what we covered. And then the second link that I'm putting in is a supplemental packet which has some articles that we've written, some things about Welcome Ministry, how to do a digital guest book, and a greeter training document that I'll refer to later. So those are 2 things to download from our website that we have just available during this webinar, to use those links to go ahead and get those. All right. So now we'll go back to, whoops, Father Barnabas. And I'll see my screen. Trying to get back to the slideshow. There we go. Okay, so this is Father Barnabas's slide from his own presentation. He says, your welcome packet is your first impression for your guests. So one of the first things he said that was very meaningful to a lot of people and really kind of struck a chord is your welcome packet should be small enough to fit in a woman's purse. It needs to be attractive and memorable. So people don't want to come into a church and be marked by this like giant packet of information. Some churches do use that as a tactic. They'll hand everybody a white bag, so then when they go to coffee hour, everybody can spot the guests with the white bag. But in general, we try to make people comfortable, and we want them to not feel like they have a target on their back as a guest. And so we want to give them something that they can, just slip into their purse or hold under a book, their liturgy book or something, so that they don't feel out of place. So that's the reasoning behind having a small welcome packet. And inside, Father Barnabas says it should have a personal greeting from your priest and all the information that a family would need to connect. And then it has information about ministries. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Oops. I'm going to try to do speaker view here. Let's see. Can everybody see? We're going to look at samples, but can you see me? Everybody can see me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So this is Father Barnabas's packet. And it's, as you can see, it's about the half size of a letter size packet. This actually, I want to show you, this is the Archdiocese welcome packet. And so this is available for free with from our Department of Stewardship, Outreach, and Evangelism. And it's a great resource. If you don't have anything, it's good to start with something like this and just put some things in there and just begin. We all should have something. So this is a good way. You just email Father Jim Corderis and tell him how many you need. But what you'll see is that Father Barnabas took the exact same image and the exact same font and the same design elements, and he just made it half the size. So this is Father Barnabas's welcome packet, which is specially designed for his parish, and it says, welcome to Saints Raphael, Nicholas, Irene, and Greek Orthodox Church. We are an intentional Orthodox Christian community for North Georgia. So that's their mission statement is here on the front. And then as you open it up, this is a history page that just tells a little bit about their parish and with the icon of their saints imposed on the back. Here is a message from the priest, and a couple of the things that he mentions in this are that new faces and children are always welcome. You won't be asked to do anything that will make you uncomfortable, and we don't expect our guests to contribute anything to the financial support of our parish. And our children worship with us, and we love having them do so. So it's a good opportunity to put in some messages that maybe a visitor, as they're first settling into the worship service, can check out and get a sense of how the community works and what they're expected to do as a visitor. And then on this side, this welcome page at the back has the guest information. So that's where you would put your name, phone number, email, anything that you're willing to say. And then towards the bottom, it says, would you like to be contacted by Father Barnabas? Yes. Check the box. Would you like to be added to our mailing list? Yes. Would you like to receive our email newsletters? Yes. So he doesn't put a no option, and that's something that he noted for us at the conference. If you're interested in any of these things, you just check the box, yes, and then you can leave this at the church. So this is one way of doing it. At some parishes, you'll have a guest book or a sign-in in the narthex, and that's another way of doing it. Either way, you just need to have an opportunity to collect information from your guests. And then the rest of this is information about the ministries of the parish: music, parish fellowship, youth groups, Sunday school, cultural ministries such as the festival and dance, and then this is the Philoptikos one, and the parish business card. So it's a pretty comprehensive packet, small package, and then on the back it says, for more information about our Orthodox Christian faith, please go to our website or call us, with the contact information again. So that's the first packet that I wanted to show you, and I've seen some really great packets at other churches. St. Anna in Roseville has a beautiful packet that's very similar. St. Basil's in Stockton has a similar packet with the tiered information. So it's something that parishes are starting to do around the metropolis and around the country. I think it's a really nice design. We have a different packet at St. John the Baptist. I'm going to show you that one. So it's in a trifold envelope, and we just have a sticker that we printed that says, welcome, St. John the Baptist Greek Orthodox Church, Beaverton, Oregon. And we just did this like on an Avery label and printed it. And so the packet opens up, and on the inside, there's a business card, the current newsletter, and then there's a parish brochure, which some people in our parish, our missions and evangelism ministry, worked hard to write. And then one of these from Ancient Faith Publishing, 12 Things I Wish I'd Known by Frederica Matthews Green. And that's it. That's all that's in the St. John packet. And in the brochure, there's a section about what is the Orthodox Church, about the parish specifically. And then on the back, there's a map with the hours and the clergy. So I can send you all this in a PDF format so that you can all see exactly what's written there, but it's just a thing that can be used in the welcome packet, and then it can be taken to an event. It can be passed out by parishioners to their friends. So creating a brochure is a way to make something that can be used in a variety of ways to share about your church. So the thing that I do like about the St. John packet in particular is I really do like the inclusion of the newsletter, because it has the monthly calendar and it gives a sense of what's going on currently in the parish. And it does require an extra step for those greeters who have to make sure that it's the current newsletter. So that is time consuming, and you want to make sure you have a greeter who's on it, you know, that, okay, it's the first of the month. Do we have the correct newsletter? But it's a really nice way of helping people get into the current rhythm of what's going on in the parish, of having that in there. And then there's a third packet that I want to show you. And this one is actually from Peoria, Arizona, and I'm glad that Father Michael's with us today. So this is a very simple packet, and I don't know if it's changed since I visited, but I really like it because what it says to me is, we're going to put something out there, whether or not we have, you know, a graphic designer creating it for us, but we're going to make an effort, a really good effort. And so I love this packet because it's not saying, oh, I'm going to wait until I have, you know, the best people to design a packet and spend a lot of money. It's a very good effort for just, let's start, let's make an effort. So I love this. It's a very simple welcome message in a nice font. Inside is a basic brochure about Orthodoxy, a lovely full color icon of the saint of the church, Saint Haralambos, and his hymn and feast day, a visitor card that they can fill out. And then also this is the Archdiocese visitor card that tells a little bit about what to expect as a visitor during the service, and also another opportunity to fill out your information. And you can get this also for free from Father Jim Corderis. And this one, it can be mailed in. So they may decide, oh, I didn't want to fill that one out while I was at church, but now I'm ready to send them my information. So I love this packet. It's super simple, but I love that it still offers people an opportunity to learn more about the faith and to engage with the parish. So really nice. So those are the 3 packets. Do we have any questions right now? Let's see. Go ahead, Catherine.
No, we have nothing new right now, Tomita.
Okay. All right. So, all right, so these are the packet content ideas, and I've already talked about the parish brochure, a welcome message from the clergy, having a business card, a current newsletter, flyers for upcoming parish events is another thing if you have the room, it's really great. And then brochures about Orthodoxy, the Eucharist, confession, those are all available. So on your screen now, you should be able to see the slide where I show some of the materials that are available from the Archdiocese. They have a ton of color brochures. Those are the 3 that I like the best because they are the most basic for a welcome packet. Some of the other ones are about baptism or 40-day blessing or blessing of the waters, and those are great, but they may not necessarily be of interest to a first-time visitor. So these ones about prayer, communion, and the creed, I think are really great for a welcome packet. And there's the visitor card. That's the example from St. Gerardo Lombosa's church in Arizona, and the welcome brochure. And so all of those are available for free from Father Jim Corderis. Just go ahead and give him an email with the number of things that you want, and he can send those to you. So that's a wonderful resource. This brochure I really, really like. It's created by St. John the Forerunner Greek Orthodox Monastery. If you want to have a basic brochure about Orthodoxy, it's actually a 4-part brochure, and it has a really nice timeline of church history and very comprehensive. So that's beautifully done, and you can order it at the link at the bottom of the page. And then Ancient Faith Publishing has a ton of brochures, all kinds of different topics that I'm sure many of you have seen at different churches. They also have, besides the ones pictured here, which is a large series that they publish that I think has over maybe 35, 40 titles, they also have some full color brochures, such as the 12 Things I Wish I'd Known, and some basic ones about Orthodoxy and prayer. So they're an excellent resource. So that's it for contents of the welcome packet. We're ready to move on to greeters. So I'm going to go ahead unless anybody has a question. Okay. So really important with greeters is, and I talked to Father Barnabas about this a little bit prior to the webinar, is it's really important to make it an official ministry and to make it a big deal. You want to have, you want to recruit people, you want to have meetings, you want to make it something very official rather than, oh, well, Mary, she's the nicest person in our parish and she always stands at the front of the church, so I'm sure she's just going to take care of it. And that's not going to work for the long run, and we have to be really, really intentional in our hospitality, because I think it's interesting. It's like if you came to my house, I would be very I would prepare, and I'd be very concerned about meeting you at the door and making sure that you're comfortable. But when it comes to church, there's so many of us and there can be a lot going on, and that's something that can fall through the cracks. But if we actually, thought about it, we'd want to make sure that that place, more than anywhere else, people feel welcome and comfortable. And I think something that I forget a lot, but it helps when I'm reminded, is that it takes a lot for somebody to visit a church, to get out of their comfort zone, to walk into a space that is new and unknown to them. And whenever I have that experience of going somewhere new, that I'm a little uncomfortable, it reminds me that I could be a better greeter and a better host in my church, to make people feel comfortable. So make it an official ministry. At St. John the Baptist, the way it works is that we have our missions and evangelism ministry, and the welcome ministry or greeter ministry is sort of like a sub-ministry of the missions and evangelism ministry. So we try to the reason we have that is just so that, Catherine can say to our missions and evangelism chair, these are some things that are happening in the front of the, in the narthex on Sundays. And so maybe this is something that we can address as a missions and evangelism ministry and have a class on it, or maybe we can respond to some of the things that are happening in coffee hour, as far as greeting people. So it's a way of keeping that communication close. And definitely try to have more than one or two people, because if, as every month, well, we have a rotation, and so like if someone's sick, they're able to sub with somebody else. And so it's really important that there's more than one or two people, so it just doesn't fall on their shoulders, but there's a whole team of people who are taking responsibility. And also, as they're trained, it means that if I'm not on duty per se this Sunday, but I see somebody that looks like they're unfamiliar with the liturgy book, or kind of wandering around looking where the restrooms might be, I'm really sensitized to being a greeter all the time. And so I think it's really important to expand that ministry as much as you can. So these are my recommendations: that you approve potential recruits with your priest, you create a schedule, you create a job description, and you host regular meetings or trainings. And you create a mechanism for greeters to provide feedback or notes. And finally, to use a database. So what I mean by those last two is, and it's something we are still working on at St. John in many ways, is we have a guest book. And so the person in the narthex is greeting, during the Sunday service, and they greet from the beginning of Orthros all the way through the end of the homily, or the beginning of the homily. I think they go into the church at the beginning of the homily. And so they're in the narthex that whole time. And so they're the ones that will be able to say, like, so-and-so, this person with, he came, and he and his wife came, and they have 2 young kids, and they didn't sign the guest book. They just walked in, but they seem to be with this other couple. And so that way we have a sense of, like, okay, like at the end of the service when we're meeting people, or if things get really busy and we're trying to figure out who well, gosh, it seemed like there were a lot of visitors, we can always go back to the greeter and say, can you tell us about, that couple, did they seem to be Orthodox? Did they sign in? Do we know who they are? So that we can kind of get a sense of whether we need to call them, or if there's another way to follow up with them. So that's a really important thing, is to try to create a mechanism for greeters to provide feedback. And sometimes it'll be, oh, they signed in, but they're Orthodox, and so they don't need, a follow-up phone call. They were just in town for a work conference, and they stopped by our church to see it. It's still nice, I suppose, to be able to send that phone call, but it's not as necessary, when that, oh, that's, somebody that's just visiting, that's already Orthodox, that belongs to a church in Pittsburgh, and they're just here for the weekend. So it sounds like we have a question. What's the question, Catherine?
The question is, what kind of tips can you give to have people use the guest book?
Okay, that's a really good question. I'm going to let you, Catherine, do you have some thoughts about that, since you greet on Sundays?
I think it just comes down to being really friendly with the persons when they come in, and like directing them. We direct them to where our guest book is, but there are people that are just, zooming in, and you don't want to chase after them and accost them or anything. So that's what we do.
Yeah. So as far as, trying to encourage them, I think that, like what Catherine said, is if they don't want to, we just kind of let them go, if they don't want to engage. But we do make sure that the greeter is there at the narthex. The guest book is on a podium there. And so their job is to encourage them. Here, if you'd like to sign in, we'd really appreciate that. Or we'd like to contact you later this week, or just enter the information that you're comfortable with. So I think the most important tip is to make sure that you have a live body there that's pointing out the guest book and asking them for that information. And if they decline, then, you just, okay, would you like a liturgy book? Have a good service, and I hope you'll stay for coffee hour. So it's okay. I know I was just talking to somebody about the database idea, And we do have a parish database, and I'll say that it's maintained by our parish administrator. And when somebody puts in their address, then we put them into the parish database and they can receive the newsletter. I mean, we do ask them if they would like to receive the newsletter. It's not an automatic thing. But we don't right now have a listserv or database function for doing, segments like, oh, they came one Sunday and now they're in this segment of the database. So that is definitely something to consider if you're at that point. I would think having a database and segmenting it is great, and there may be ways to do that to facilitate better follow-up. Go ahead, Catherine.
Another person wants to know what information we actually have on the guest book.
Oh, okay. So at St. John the Baptist, we're currently trying to transition to a digital guest book on an iPad. And on that one, we ask their name, their phone number, their email, if they would like to, if they came with somebody, where their home parish is, and if they would like to be contacted. And none of it is required, so they can skip a field if they would like to. On our paper guest book, we do ask for their street address, their phone number, their email, and if they came with somebody. So those are the things. Go ahead. It looks like there's more questions.
There is. Let me look at it real quick. Well, it says, we have many guests during the sacraments. Does anybody have a successful approach to making the most of these guests' presence within the church? The demographic is largely distantly connected Orthodox and their families.
Right. So for funerals, baptisms, weddings, yes. I think some of these same principles apply, though I think that would be a great topic for a separate webinar, because I think there are a lot of opportunities in each of those, but I don't think we can actually use a blanket approach for funerals, weddings, and baptisms. So I think it would be great to have a time where we talk about specific opportunities and how to do that. But I mean, if the people that are hosting the sacrament, I would say that, the family that is, it's their event, would like to, and if they're open to it, and you want to offer to say, can we have a greeter posted at the door? You can follow a lot of the same Sunday greeting principles and offer that to them. But there, I think there are a lot of opportunities there that we could better utilize. Yeah. Okay. What else do we have here?
Someone just said that the greeter takes the guest book to the priest and he welcomes the guest.
Okay, yeah, that's actually something we do at St. John too, is that we, and I think that's great. We have the parish council members, or the greeters and parish council members together, make sure that somebody writes all the names of those that signed in, and those are given to the priest so he can welcome them by name at the end of the service. Another thing that I've seen is that at the end of a service, the priest asked everybody who's a guest to raise their hand. And I was a guest that Sunday, and so I did. And then they brought the welcome packet out to us, and they said, we really hope you'll stay for coffee hour. So there's different ways of doing it, but I think it's a great thing to be able to, some people don't like to be called out by name, but I think in general it's all right, as long as you're not making them do something uncomfortable after you call them out by name. So is there another question?
Just a comment that, and I do remember this too, that Father Barnabas said he personally doesn't do that. He doesn't make the guests known to anybody so that they don't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I think that's really up to your priest and your setting. I think people have had success both ways, and if you have an experience where you're like, I think our guests are really uncomfortable with that, then you might, bring that up in a greeter meeting. But I think it can be positive either way. So we'll let that be something that just gets to be part of your own discussion. So we'll move on. So in the narthex, these are the things to do. Definitely have a warm smile, a firm handshake. I've walked into churches where I definitely got a hug right away, and I was like, all right, that is totally okay. But, offer a welcome packet, a weekly bulletin, liturgy book, etc. Encourage the person to sign in the guest book or show them the card to fill out. Offer to help them find a seat. This past Sunday at St. John the Baptist was extremely full, and I noticed that the guests were ushered. There was a family that was ushered up into one of the front rows, and I was really, really thankful that we had somebody available to usher them, because it was really hard for people to find a seat on Sunday. And so I think that's a great thing to do, especially for the ushers to fill up, and they'll feel more comfortable going into one of those front rows that's being left open if somebody's leading them there. And then make sure to already invite them to coffee hour. So you're already warming them up to the idea that, hey, we're going to see you later if you want to talk more. And then the things to avoid are just, neglecting your post and wandering off, and not being there to see people as they come in. And I know the narthex can be a really busy place, so just try to avoid getting into conversations with others, so that you're really there and focused on the guests. And then I asked a few people, I said, what's the one thing you wouldn't say? And they all said, don't say, are you Greek? Are you Russian? Because that is, even though it's not necessarily like the intent is not negative, it can come across as, do you already belong here? Are you one of us? And a lot of times that isn't the intent, but it can just be interpreted that way. So that's just something to avoid. If you have anything else in mind that you think should be done or avoided, feel free to comment in the chat. I'm just going to cover really quickly a few things, a few what if things. What if the person looks familiar? So I had somebody from a parish say, well, we don't greet people because the greeters, that when we tried to do it, the greeters were afraid of offending people that don't come that often. And they didn't want to get into that situation where they said, hi, welcome to our church. And the person said, my grandfather built this church. Why are you welcome?
The couch is quiet.
And so I would say in response to that, there's no reason not to greet people at your church. I think, you just have to create that culture at your parish that you're going to be greeted. You're going to be greeted if you're a parishioner or you're a guest. And if you see somebody that you're pretty sure that they've been around before, just take it on yourself to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't think we've met yet. Or I'm so sorry, I haven't introduced myself to you. My name is, and just start off there. And if they say, oh, I've been here several times, I just have a bad memory. Just take it on yourself, and it's great. So it's really important to create that culture and not be afraid for that reason. Let's see, we have comments. Okay. Next slide. So what if they don't want to engage? And if somebody just kind of zooms in, doesn't want to, they light their candle and they venerate the icon and they walk into the church and they don't want to sign the guest book, it's totally fine. As long as the person doesn't appear to be a threatening presence, I would just follow their lead and look for other opportunities to connect with them. So you might say to somebody as another parishioner as they're coming in, oh, I just saw this, tall gentleman, and he's wearing a dark coat, and, he's sitting on the right side, and maybe you could sit next to him. And if he has any questions about the liturgy book, I just don't know if he's familiar with it, if you don't want to just kind of help him out. Or you could offer them a welcome packet towards the end of liturgy, or find them after church and invite them to coffee hour. So totally fine to follow people's lead. Sometimes, they know what they're doing, and they just want to be anonymous, and they just want to go to church and not connect with people. Or sometimes they just really want to be the fly on the wall and do not want to, talk about their experience. They just kind of want to see what everybody else is doing. Okay, we have a new question.
Yes, this is a good question. Do you know of any parishes that have greeters that are outdoors to meet and greet people before they even enter the narthex?
Yes, actually, this does not happen in Portland, Oregon, or the northern regions. as far as I know. But I was in San Diego at Cardiff by the Sea, the parish of Saints Constantine and Helen, and their greeter table is outside. And I've talked to some other people. Actually, I talked to another gentleman this week, and their greeter table is outside as well. That's absolutely fine. I think it's fine as long as it's manned. It really just depends on the architecture of your church and your setup. In some churches, like at St. John the Baptist, there are different ways to enter the church. There's 2 different ways. And so we could miss people that come in a different way, like through the side door. But it just makes the most sense to have the greeting in the narthex, because 90% of the people enter at the narthex. And it's labeled as the church entrance. So I think, you can just adapt it to your needs. Any other questions?
No, there was just a comment from St. George in Prescott that's what they do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'd be interested if you see any challenges or benefits to greeting outside. You could share that as well if there's a specific reason why that's helpful. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. So what if the person's not appropriately dressed? And I think this is one of those things that could require discernment and could be something to talk about in greeter training. And you could invite your priest to be, their greeter training to help the greeters grapple with some of these kind of discernment questions. But what I've learned and what I've talked to some clergy about is for a first visit, they want guests to experience the hospitality and love of being welcome just as they come. And they believe that, through additional visits and, those one-on-one pastoral conversations and relationships, they're going to learn what's the norm at the church. And if they really are searching to be part of the community and to know Christ, it's like, their mode of dress will probably adapt to that as well. But that's just not something that we have to address at the first visit. And I'm sure it's a matter of degrees, so it can be something that requires discernment. But one of the things we do at St. John the Baptist is that we've written on our website, we have an area for visitors, and it says, like, are you planning your first visit? And it kind of addresses some of those things that you might see and you might experience. And one of the things that we say is women generally wear X and men generally wear this, and you may feel comfortable being similarly attired, or something like that. So you may be most comfortable wearing something similar. So that's kind of something that I think is a courtesy to our guests to help them to feel comfortable. Any other questions right now, Catherine?
No, I mean, there's a good comment. And I'm guessing everybody on the chat room's seeing it, though. So it was just that the Catholic Church said their greeting ministry made a quantum leap when they launched a parking service.
Oh,
wow. As part of the greeting. So, it's a good idea.
Okay, great. Yeah, it is helpful. Thank you for reading those, because I am realizing too that we have some people on the phone, and so there's some things they're not seeing. So I appreciate that help reading those. Okay. So yeah, this is just I was saying greeters must practice good discernment. That was the slide that was there. So, there's just a lot that I think you pick up from doing it. There is a training program that Father Barnabas recommended, and we'll get to that in 2 slides. So after the liturgy, here are some guidelines. Find your guests right away. One of the times that guests are most likely to sneak out the back door is while Father is passing out the andiron. And so you might have some designated people that are ready to kind of go out, they receive their blessed bread and then they turn around and go find those guests. Or maybe they plan to just get a blessing at the end or whatever, so that they can, go introduce themselves right away before the guest gets uncomfortable and is like, do I have to kiss the hand? Am I supposed to take the bread? I'm not really sure. So it's a perfect time to have somebody designated to, reiterate that invitation to coffee hour. At most churches, many churches, it's going to be very obvious where coffee hour is, but at some churches, it's not at all. And one time I visited a parish about 18 months ago, and they were doing some construction, and I had no idea where coffee hour was, and nobody helped me get there. And I just kind of had to like do some trial and error to find it. And it was kind of uncomfortable. But I even had a meeting set up with the priest during coffee hour. So it was imperative that I get there. But if I was not, if I didn't have a meeting to get to, I might have given up. So just keep that in mind to make it, you know, it's sometimes good to just walk with somebody or, you know, help them get there and then help them find the coffee, because sometimes that's not very apparent either, because there are so many people clustered around the coffee that you can't actually see it. And then get to know them. I have some sample questions coming up, and feel free to share about yourself as well. If, you know, you'll just see how that is. If they're uncomfortable, they don't like the questions, you know, you can kind of just say, oh, okay, well, there's some snacks over here. You know, it was really nice meeting you. I hope to see you again. And you know, leave them alone. But some people, you know, they really do enjoy talking, but they don't want to only be the subject of an inquisition. They want to know something about you. It should be a give and take. So don't be afraid to ask, you know, to share a little bit about yourself as well. And then something that I find is that after asking them just very few questions, I usually learn something from the person that makes me think, oh, I really need to introduce them to such and such a person. So I would say the thing to do right after getting to know them a little bit is to respond to their stated interests. So one time I was talking to a woman, she's like, I moved to the area, I teach high school math. And I was like, oh, you have to meet Deacon Innocent because he teaches high school chemistry. What school are you at? You know, and what's your schedule like? And how are you liking the transition to teaching in this area? And then I introduced them, and there was a natural connection right away. Or somebody with young children, or a young adult that's saying, well, yeah, I'd be kind of interested in coming to a young adult meeting. And in those cases, I've either been able to invite them, to introduce them to somebody that can connect them right away, or I've been even able to take their phone number and say, do you mind if I text you, or text share your phone number with the person that organizes that group so that they can call you and invite you. So I've listed some of the ideas about that, about how to respond to their interests, you know, and some of those might be to show them a recommended book in the bookstore, give them a little tour of where the Sunday school classrooms are, or if you have a school, the school, and you could ask for their email or phone number right there so that you could personally be the one to invite them to the next activity. So there are so many different things, and it's not always, I know that some people say, make sure to introduce them to the priest. And I think that that's an awesome thing to do, but it's not always the most immediate or needful interaction. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe what they're saying is, I really want to meet other moms, or I really want to talk to somebody that runs the bookstore because I'm really interested in that, you know. And so that's the first introduction. And then if you're able to introduce them to the clergy as well, that's wonderful. So it's kind of, you kind of just respond to what they're leaning towards. Okay, we have some new questions, Catherine.
Yes, these are good. So they're saying, those who greet in the narthex are one set of greeters. Do you have more who greet after liturgy, who follow up in the fellowship hour? That's one question. And then how do you encourage regular parishioners to keep greeting guests? So
Right. Those are really great questions. So Catherine and I have talked about those specific things a lot. We don't really have another set, like official set of greeters in the coffee hour. We do kind of encourage the Sunday greeter. We ask them to greet in the narthex, and then there's a welcome table or a visitor's table in the coffee hour hall that has more pamphlets, more reading material, and they are stationed there to, you know, reconnect with the visitor again. But what I notice, and Catherine, you can chime in if you have a different view or have seen something else, but what I've noticed is that I rarely see the visitors make it back to that table. Instead, there's probably like a half dozen people that are just very much in tune with like welcoming new people. They see that they haven't seen you before and they want to go up and introduce themselves. Right. So our Deacon Innocent is really good at this. I've actually noticed deacons at every church I visited be particularly good at this. I think it's a special grace of the deacon, the role of a deacon, that they are very mindful of new faces and visitors. And I try to do it when I'm there and I'm not manning another table or something. I know other people try to do it, and we really do talk about it as much as we can, and we remind people, do you remember how you felt the first time that you walked into the parish? But there are certain people that are just more inclined to do so, and I think it's always a struggle to remind people to get out of their comfort zone and go find that new person and engage. But it's something that's an ongoing conversation. So I would say that it is a parish mentality that we try to continue, and it is an ongoing conversation. Okay. So that actually ties in really well to my next slide with whose job is it to greet? And it's everybody's. So I say young or old, married or unmarried, dads with children hanging off their arms, and teachers running to prep Sunday school. If you see a new face, take that 30 seconds at least to say, oh, hi, my name's Tamayita. Are you new here? Where are you from? And I know it's hard because during coffee hour, we're all kind of running, and there's people we need to greet or see that, we need to connect with in our own spiritual family. But I would also argue that it's a safety issue too. This is the home of our children, and we want to make sure that we as adults are all kind of looking out for one another, and not just, it's not only a safety issue, but it's safety and hospitality. We want to make sure we know who's in the parish. And so I think it's worth the extra effort to really talk to everybody about taking the extra time to say hello to an unfamiliar face. And even I think the hardest thing, and I'm experiencing it myself a lot, is that I know this person has been here for 3 or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 months, and I haven't met them yet. But, I just always start out that conversation with, oh, I've seen you've been here and I've been here, and we haven't met yet. So I'm so sorry. I would really like to get to know you. So I think it's absolutely imperative that we all have that mindset. And here are some of the sample questions. Did you come with someone today? Do you know someone here? Are you from this area? Are you visiting? What brings you to our area? Have you visited here before? Have you been to an Orthodox church before? What is your background? So those are all some open-ended questions that we found, I've talked to other greeters that we found have been helpful. Catherine, do you have any others that you would add to this?
Those are pretty much the ones that I think we always start with. What do you mean by what is your background? I was just curious about that one.
Right. So I was actually talking to the deacon at our church about that question, and he was saying that he says he's pretty systematic about asking the same questions. And did you come with somebody? Are you visiting? And because he wants to know right away, like if they don't think they're a visitor, he would love to know this new parishioner that he doesn't know yet. And then he usually asks them if they've had other experiences with the Orthodox Church. Mm-hmm. And then from there, if they've gotten to that point in the conversation, he often asks like what their religious background is. Mm-hmm. So if in the first couple questions you're sensing they don't want to talk, you may not end up getting that personal about like, where are you coming from? But he finds that those are the questions that he tends to go through with most visitors.
And this is generally, though, during the fellowship time in the coffee hour, not necessarily out in the narthex, because you don't really have that much time as a greeter to go into that deep of a conversation. Yes, that's right. That's a really good point. Do we have a new comment? Let's see. How did you, another question might be just, how did you learn about, St. John, or how did you learn about St. whatever? Yeah, perfect. I love that. That is one that I ask a lot. Like, how did you find us? That's a great one. Okay, so we'll keep going. I'm a little behind schedule, but really good comments and questions. So this is the recommended training source from Father Barnabas. He says that this is what his parish uses. It's
not an Orthodox Christian greeting training resource, but it's one that he has adapted for his needs, and that's the link there. It's, if you go to evangelismcoach.org, you will just find a button right there that says improve your greeter ministry, and you can click on that. But that's the full link right there. And the other thing I wanted to mention is in the packet that I linked, there was the handout packet that has the note-taking kind of prompts for today's webinar. And then there's another packet that has some articles. At the end of that packet, I included a sample greeter training guidelines that I received from St. Basil Greek Orthodox Church in San Jose. And that's specific to their parish. So you'll see, like, they mention a couple of different people by name, but I think that's a really great start too. So if you're looking to put together a greeter training and a job description, look to that packet and you'll see some already some Orthodox greeter training in there. All right, so let's move on to follow-up. This is an area that we definitely need improvement on, and it's always something that can be better. So guest follow-up within 48 hours is ideal. Another one of my big tips is make a realistic plan and stick to it. And the reason I say that is there's all kinds of awesome things you could do with databases, and, oh, the clergy are going to make this phone call and then so-and-so is going to make this phone call. But if it's not realistic or the schedules of those people are not consistent, then it's not going to stick. So I think it's best to find, something that is modest and really works for the people involved. So find 1 to 2 volunteers dedicated to implementing the follow-up plan and replenishing supplies. So if you have postcards that you're printing, or letters that you're printing, or stamps are needed or something like that, you need people that are always kind of on top of it. And then find a way to communicate as a group about follow-up and subsequent touches. So using a Google Doc or spreadsheet or a database or group email. And we have a comment to share.
Yes, I think it's important to share it, Talmida. It's from a parishioner down in Roseburg, and she said she's visited churches where the greeters try to engage too much during orthros, and then the greeter, the guest felt uncomfortable. So she thought is suggesting that first contact is a little more short and sweet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in the narthex, especially like as somebody that, if I'm visiting a church, I kind of just want to use the narthex to really enter into the church and to transition from the busyness of getting there to prayer. And so I think, whatever you can do to keep it a very prayerful place, that introduces, a visitor to the mystery of the church and the beauty of the church, and with reverence, to be quiet and respectful. That's great. And always saying, I really look forward to talking to you during coffee hour, so that you indicate that you do want to get to know them better, but this might not be the perfect time. I like that. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to move quickly through the next couple slides. So I hope you've had some time to read this. So yeah, I think it would be great to have a way where different greeters and the people doing follow-up and the clergy and perhaps the stewardship chair and the parish administrator, like any of those people, could all get into the same place and get on the same page about what happened on Sunday, because not all those people are going to have had the same view. The priest will be taking off his vestments while somebody else is greeting somebody, while the parish administrator may not be there at all. So it's great to find a way that you can all communicate about who you met and how you're following up. Okay, we have another question.
Yeah, it's pretty quick, hopefully. It's just someone saying that they're on the parish board, and even though they want to be welcoming people, there's so many times they get sidelined, and they want to know if you have any suggestions to manage parishioners taking time away from the greeters.
That's a really hard one. I think that, it's creating a parish culture, because I find that, I'm involved with different ministries at my parish, and I'll come into the narthex, and somebody that I emailed during the week will want to talk to me about that get back to me in person in the narthex. And I'm thinking, I am not even in the mindset to recall all the details of this. So I would prefer not to have that conversation there. So I think that it's just probably a conversation that the parish council and the greeters could have together, as well as the clergy, to talk about, how to work harder at creating an atmosphere in the narthex that's conducive to transitioning into prayer. And sometimes I'll say, oh, I'd love to talk to you about that during coffee hour. Or if I'm a greeter, which has happened on rare occasion, but I'll say, I really, I would love to talk to you about that, but I really want to meet this person, or I really want to be ready for those that are coming for the first time to our church. So I would just kind of honestly say, make some sort of statement that makes it clear that you want to have that conversation, but not right now.
Great.
Yeah. Would you add anything to that, Catherine?
Well, I think this person was thinking more about it's actually during fellowship time, during the fellowship hour, when they're supposed to be greeting, but they're getting sidetracked by other people. And yeah. I think we have a lot of people that are involved in the process, that are sensitive to the new people. Someone else just quickly commented too that they think it's important for the priest to be available and be proactive in meeting the visitors. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, deacons are particularly great at doing that too.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think, it's great. I know Father Barnabas has a chair and table that he specifically goes to every Sunday during coffee hour, and everybody's trained to know, bring the visitors here, or if you want to talk to me, come over to this table. Mm-hmm. So that, it's just a routine for them. And as far as just being busy during coffee hour and having a hard time getting to visitors, that is an ongoing struggle that I really face as well. So not just in the narthex, but in coffee hour. And I think, again, just be really firm and pleasant in that, and saying, I really want to talk to you about that, but maybe I can call you this afternoon, or maybe I can call you tomorrow, because I just noticed there's somebody I haven't met yet. So, okay, so this is Father Barnabas's follow-up plan. It is about 5 o'clock, so if people have to start taking off, I totally understand, and we are still recording, and God willing, we'll be able to post this somewhere for you to view later, but hopefully you've gotten a lot out of it so far, so thanks for being here. So this is his plan. It begins within 48 hours. So the welcome team fills out the thank you postcard before they leave church. They have the postage already attached, and they drop it in the mail. So that happens on Sunday afternoon. They collect the guest cards and enter all that information into the database on Monday. Then a personal letter is sent from the priest on Tuesday. A letter from the parish council president is mailed on Tuesday. A phone call or email is done by the priest on Wednesday. And then an invitation, and it doesn't specify who it's from, but it could be, any volunteer in the parish, by phone, letter, or email, is given by Thursday. And a second thank you letter the following week. And then he includes the statement that the average American needs at least 7 touches to begin the process of connection. So that's a pretty aggressive plan for a lot of us, and I think it's a great plan. I would also just say start where you can. So in our case at St. John the Baptist, we need to be more consistent about making, right now we're working on phone calls. So we're going to be doing phone calls or emails depending on what they've given us on Monday or Tuesday. So we'll just, basically it gives us a day to talk to one another and say, did you talk to them? Do they know somebody at St. John? What do you think they're interested in, or what did you learn, or what should I reach out to them with in particular? And if there's no information in particular, then we just call and we'll say something like, I noticed you visited. I didn't get to meet you in person, if that's true, but I really look forward to meeting you again. Did you have any questions about your visit? And you might use some of the questions that we talked about as sample questions, like, are you from the area? And then if they don't have, depending on where the conversation goes, you can just say, well, I'd love to offer to add you to the mailing list or the listserv if you'd like that. And then, well, I really hope I see you again, and you're always welcome here. Have a great day. So it can be very, very simple. And I also wanted to say, whether it's the priest or a parishioner, or whether an email, a phone call, or a postcard, it's really important to just do it, because I've read research that says, oh, it's most important that it's a priest. Oh no, it's most important that it's a parishioner. People are too intimidated to hear from the priest. But there's conflicting research out there. So with a nod to our neighbors at Nike, because we're right across the street from them, I say, just do it. Just make sure somebody is reaching out to your visitors. And whatever, if it's a postcard or an email, that's great. Just start with something that you can do consistently, and that you have a volunteer or two in your parish that's really passionate about keeping it up. I think this is a great opportunity for people that maybe aren't able to get out very often, but they can still get the information to call somebody, if they're not very mobile. And this is a ministry that they can do from home. So I think this is something that, you just have to find that key volunteer, or the priest can do this, of course. But it's always helpful to have partners that are helping out with this and helping the priest to do it. So we have a question?
Oh, no, just a thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. So in summary, those are the 3 things to do. Make an attractive welcome packet that offers a snapshot of your church. Train those greeters and collect visitor information, and do follow up within 48 hours. So 1, 2, 3, that covers everything. And as you know from just speaking about it for an hour, there's all kinds of details and creativity and things that you can add in to make it, more and more spectacular. So I hope this has been helpful. If you would like to, we can now, I would like to welcome everybody to come on their video. And if you have, video capability, really cool to see everybody. And I was going to unmute everybody so everybody could say hello and kind of introduce themselves. I'm going to stop the recording now before I unmute everybody. So I just want to thank you all for coming, and really appreciate your participation and your great questions and comments in our first COME webinar.